God bless you, loved ones. Welcome to the Word with Chester. Today we'll continue study in the fourth chapter of the book of Exodus. Let me thank God for you, and let me pause to say Merry Christmas to all of you that celebrate Christmas, and those of you that celebrate Hanukkah or Kwanzaa. I wish you happy holidays, and I trust that God will bless us all and give us all a prosperous new year. I love you today, and I love you with the love of the Lord. In our last setting, we read down to verse 17. Today, we will begin reading verse 18 and continue to the conclusion of the chapter. Well, God had talked to Moses and called Moses to do a specific work. And Moses had made his excuses to God as to him not being an eloquent person or an elegant person or a person with great speech. He was mentioning that he was slow to speak and slow of speech and a slow tongue and so many words that he stuttered and things of that nature. And God had talked to him and said, talk to him about his brother Aaron. In other words, I will speak to you and you speak to Aaron, and he can present it to the people. Aaron did have a smooth tongue, and he could talk to people and communicate. He was an orator, but you got to understand, all orators don't hear from God. If you really research and listen to preachers, we have great preachers in our world today, but most of them that preach what someone else had got from God, what they've learned. They research people and their research people and their methods of delivery and things of that nature, and they have come up with styles because they've learned it or acquired it from other people. But you got to understand, somebody has to hear from God for this thing to be genuine and for people's heart to be pricked. Now, there's nothing wrong with you preaching sermons that other people have preached, but you got to understand that sermons, God had to reveal it and give it to someone, and then you took it and ran with it. But God has someone that he talks to as an individual, and you got to understand, God spoke to Moses. He did not speak to Aaron, but God said, I'm going to be a God to you and speak to you, and you're going to be as God to Aaron, because you will be telling him, relaying the message as to what I am saying. And this was the case, and God brought this to Moses' attention. And then here we find in our reading, we'll begin our study today as Moses returned to Egypt. In verse 18, and Moses went and returned to Jethro his father-in-law, and said unto him, let me go, I pray thee, and return to my brethren who are in Egypt, and see whether they are yet alive. And Jethro said to Moses, go in peace. Well, he was there with his father-in-law, and he'd been there for some time, and he went and made clear passage with his father-in-law. And his father-in-law sent him away with his blessings. Well, let's read in verse 19. And the Lord said unto Moses in Midian, go return unto Egypt, and all the men, for all the men are dead who sought thy life. If you remember, Pharaoh sought his life. Well, he had died, and the Egyptians there sought Moses' life, but they had died. Now, this much time it transpired with Moses being in Midian there with his father-in-law, and where he got his wife at, and so you got to understand, that much time had transpired. All of those people had died who sought to kill him, so he had free passage to go back to Egypt. Verse 19, and the Lord said unto Moses in Midian, go, return into Egypt, for all the men are dead who sought thy life. And Moses took his wife and his sons and set them upon an ass, and he returned to the land of Egypt. And Moses took the rod of God in his hand. Now you got to understand, he took the rod of God in his hand, the one that God showed him that great miracle with. Verse 21, and the Lord said unto Moses, when thou goest to return to Egypt, see that thou do all those wonders before Pharaoh, which I have put in thine hand. But I will harden his heart, that he shall not let the people go? Well, you got to understand, and it's hard to understand. Why would God harden Pharaoh's heart? Wouldn't it be easy for God to touch his heart and him go down and get the children of Israel? But you have to understand, God had to prove not only to Moses, not only to the children of Israel, but also to Egypt, that he was and is the true and the living God. In verse 22, and thou shalt say unto Pharaoh, thus saith the Lord, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. And I say unto thee, let my son go, that he may serve me. And if thou refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay thy son, even thy firstborn. Well, can you see? God is doing something here. As we continue to read this story, you can see the handiwork of God, not only proving himself to the children of Israel, but also proving himself to Egypt and the land of Egypt. In verse 24, and it came to pass by the way in the end that the Lord met him and sought to kill him. Wait a minute now. You got to understand. Now, this is a hard verse to grasp. Verse 24 reads again, and it came to pass by the way in the end that the Lord met him and sought to kill him. Well, the subject of the person that we're on now is Moses. Why would the Lord seek to kill Moses? He's the one that sent him down to the children of Israel. Now, we're going to get intelligence as we read verse 25. We're going to link them together. Read as 25 reads, then Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskins of her sons and cast it at his feet and said, surely a bloody husband art thou to me. Let's please excuse me. Let's link these two verses up together. Now, you have to understand, it was a command, and it was already, God had dealt with the children of Israel, and had all of them circumcised, and no one was supposed to serve, no one was supposed to do anything, especially pertaining to the things of God, unless they had been circumcised. Now, remember, Moses went down to the land of Midian. He was not with the children of Israel, so that custom was not down in the land of Midian. And here he goes. He's got him and his family going back to Egypt now, where the children of Israel was, to do a work for God. And you have to understand, in doing a work for God, you have to do and keep the precepts that he has initiated. So, if I can paraphrase here, Zipporah, in verse 25, Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskins of her sons and cast it at his feet and said, surely a bloody husband art thou to me. In other words, requiring me to do such a thing to my sons. She didn't know about that custom, or she was told about it by Moses. She didn't come up with the children of Israel. She didn't know all of the precepts that have been taught to the children of Israel. She didn't understand, but she obeyed her husband. She did what her husband said and cut off the foreskin of her son's feet. I'll read 25 again. Let's get this now. And Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskins of her son and cast it at his feet and said, surely a bloody husband art thou to me. Verse 26, so he let him go, and then she said, a bloody husband art thou because of the circumcision. In other words, God released him. God had him held there. God would have took his life. Why? Because God is that adamant about every precept that he put forth to the children of Israel. There are precepts that man put in there, but you got to understand, when God gives a precept, he expects it to be kept, and he will have it kept if you do a will and a work for him. Let me read 25 again, and then we'll read 26. Then Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her sons and cast it at his feet, at the feet of Moses, and said, "Surely a bloody husband art thou to me." So he let him go. We're conjuncting these verses together, 24, 25, and now 26. So he let him go, talking about Moses. So he let him go. Then she said, "A bloody husband thou art because of the circumcision." Well, let's read in verse 27 and continue. And the Lord said to Aaron, "Go into the wilderness to meet Moses." And he went and met him in the mount of God and kissed him. Here, the two brethren meet. Aaron met Moses there in the mount of God and kissed him. Let's read 28. And Moses told Aaron all the words of the Lord who had sent him and all the signs which he had commanded him. And Moses and Aaron went to gather together all the elders of the children of Israel. Can you understand? These two brothers met, and Moses told Aaron everything that God had told him. And here they are going to meet with the elders of Israel, or gathering them together. In verse 30, and Aaron spoke all the words which the Lord had spoken unto Moses, and did the signs in the sight of the people. Well, Aaron spoke all the words which the Lord had spoke unto Moses. Can you see that God was in this picture? He spoke to Moses, told Moses what to say. Moses relayed it to Aaron. And Aaron, because he had a smooth speech or a silver tongue, whatever you want to call it, because he was an orator, he spoke to the people. I'll read 30 again and then 31. And Aaron spoke all the words which the Lord had spoken to Moses, and did the signs in the sight of the people. Verse 31, and the people believed, and when they heard that the Lord had visited the children of Israel, that he had looked upon their affliction, then they bowed their heads and worshiped. They believed, and then they began to worship. You got to understand, they've been praying for God to come and take these tasks off of them, but not only had they been praying, it was promised. And you got to understand, the elders or those in charge, they knew, or they had scribes, or they had people who knew the book, who knew the Bible, knew that it had been promised that God was going to visit them, and they are going to bring them out of the land of Egypt. When they heard these words spoken by Aaron but given by Moses, the people, they received it, and they fell down and worshiped the true and the living God. And that's the way God is. When you know he has visited you, you should worship. You should give him praise, and you should give him glory. All the glory that's due his name. And this is what the children of Israel did. When they heard these words, they bowed themselves, they bowed their heads, and they worshiped the true and the living God. Well, my friends, Merry Christmas to you, and I want you to know that I love you with the love of the Lord. If you would like to contact me for any reason, you can write me at the Work with Chester Ministries, Post Office Box 200483, San Antonio, Texas, 78220. You can also reach me at my website, www.poemsbychester.com. Remember our CD, it will be a blessing to you, and you will be a blessing to this ministry. God bless you. I love you with the love of the Lord. Merry Christmas to you.